Here we have f of x equals 2x minus 1, and g of x equals x plus 1 over 2. And we want to find f of g of x, and then we want to find these other two remaining questions here, right? F of g of 3 and g of f of 3. Okay, so the first one here requires us to just plug in the function into the other, right? Now in this case, g is the inner function, okay, and we're going to evaluate f at that function, right? So we can rewrite it like this, right? Some students like this way better, okay? Maybe it just makes it a little bit clearer, right? F is the outer function, so we're going to evaluate it at g. So what does that mean? Okay, one way we can do this is we'll just write the outer function, which is f, so 2 times x minus 1, but instead of putting the x here, I put parentheses because we have to replace it with something, right? What are we going to replace the x with? We're going to replace the x with g, right? The other function here, so x plus 1 over 2. Now you notice in this case, we can actually cancel out the 2's here, right? So we'll cancel out the 2's. Notice we end up with x plus 1 minus 1, which is just equal to x. So what does that mean here? Well, what is f of g of 3? Okay, well, we can do this one of two ways, right? Remember, this is f of g of x. Okay, so now because we know what f of g of x is, if we want to find f of g of 3, we can just plug this number back into f of g of x. Okay? But notice what's going to happen here. Right? What is f of g of 3? That's just going to equal 3, right? Because that's what f of g of x is. Now, what is the other way to do this, though? Right? Remember, the other way to do this is, hey, let's do f g of 3 first, okay? So g of 3, and we plug that into g function, we get 3 plus 1 over 2, right? 4 over 2, which is just 2. But then what do we do with this 2? Right? Well, we plug it into the outer function, which is f. So what is f of 2? Right? It's 2 times 2 minus 1, 4 minus 1, which is 3. And we get the same answer, right? We should. What about g of f of 3? So this one, notice we didn't find f of g of x, right? So in this case, we could just find f of 3 first. Okay, so we'll find f of 3. So f of 3 is going to equal 2 times 3 minus 1, 6 minus 1, which is 5. And what should we do with this 5 here? We'll evaluate that at g, right? So g of 5 then is going to equal 5 plus 1 over 2, 6 over 2, which is actually equal to 3. So g of f of 3 is also equal to 3. Okay? So this is not really a coincidence, okay? So actually these two functions, f and g, are inverses of each other. Okay? So we really haven't learned that yet. Okay, but this is a special case where we actually just end up with the input value as the solution here.